My name's Kelly Elliott, your presenter. I'm a graduate student in the Masters of Science in Interdisciplinary Studies program in the Department of Occupational, Workforce, and Leadership Studies. The title of my research study is There's a Method to the Madness, Hiring Preferences Based on Teacher Certification Method in Central Texas. Imagine going through 4 or even 5 years of undergraduate study, an internship, several high-stakes tests to become certified in your career field. You understand that your pay may not keep up with inflation, you'll face public scrutiny and pressure from a variety of stakeholders, you'll work many hours of unpaid overtime, and 40% of your peers will leave the profession within 5 years. In spite of this, all you really want to do is teach. If you're watching this presentation, it's likely that you've spent some time in a classroom, either as a student or a teacher, and those experiences have shaped your view of not only education, but of the world. Teachers make up one of the largest sectors of the workforce, with about 3 million teachers working in schools across the country. In Texas, these teachers got to the classroom in one of 2 ways: through a traditional university-based program with a student teaching component, or through an alternative certification program where you have an option to student teach or do a paid internship. When I read that the number of new teachers hired in Texas had declined 40% between 2008 and 2012, I became passionate about this research study. In addition, at the time, I was completing my own alternative certification program and hoping desperately to become one of those 3 million teachers as quickly as possible. The purpose of this study was to examine the principal hiring preferences in the Central Texas area, hoping to find answers to the following questions. First, do principals prefer to hire traditionally certified teachers compared to alternatively certified teachers? Also, what are the top characteristics that principals look for in a new teacher when they're making those hiring choices? Are there differences in those preferences based on the types of schools you're looking at or the principal demographics? And finally, what do principals really think about teacher staffing and certification in Central Texas? The design for my research study was to administer a quantitative survey. It was administered using the SurveyMonkey platform. The survey was designed and based off of information that I learned during the literature review. The participants were principals in education service centers for regions 12, 13, 14, 15, and 20 in the Central Texas area. The circled area on the map highlights the general vicinity of the regions and where they're located within the state. These principals were emailed the survey using SurveyMonkey, and the participants then came from a variety of types of schools and grade levels from within those education service center regions. Data was to be categorized based on a variety of demographics. By using the publicly available Texas Education Association data reporting search, a list of emails of 1,135 school principals in the target area was obtained. These principals were emailed the survey using the SurveyMonkey platform, and those that responded comprised the sample population. After adjusting for incomplete survey responses, a total of 111 surveys were included in the study results. The data obtained was analyzed using descriptive statistical methods, comparing the weighted scores of various categories based on a variety of demographics. The 3 major findings that emerged from this study can be used as a lens from which to view the staffing process for new teachers. First, and most importantly, is that principals do prefer to hire teachers with traditional certifications. As you can see from the chart on the slide, a little over half of all respondents, 56%, indicated a preference for traditionally certified teachers. No one indicated a preference for alternatively certified teachers. But if you are completing an alt-cert program, don't worry. Surprisingly, the other 44% of respondents didn't have a preference one way or the other. Obviously, different areas and types of schools are going to have different needs, and certification is just one of many things that administrators consider when making their staffing decisions. And taking that into consideration, I also found that most demographic groups had similar preferences based on what they were looking for in their new hires. Topping the list were the obvious things like having a passion for teaching, having good communication skills, and fitting into the culture of the school. In fact, the top 5 characteristics chosen by administrators were almost always the same, regardless of the demographic group that you were looking at. So, with those preferences being so similar, it's also very important to note another of the findings was that the main reason given for the preference towards traditionally certified teachers was largely based on experience or perceived experience. How quickly could a teacher come in, hit the ground running, and make a meaningful contribution to the success of the students? Principals appeared to believe that university programs better prepared their students in this regard. If you're just starting out and you have the choice, you might consider a traditional program for this reason. But if you really want to be a teacher and maybe you just can't take off a semester to student teach, or maybe you're a career changer and you just found your calling later in life, don't be discouraged from completing an alternative program. So the main takeaway for teachers is based on this study, the most important thing you can do if you're trying to stand out among other applicants and secure that teaching job in your coveted area or in your preferred certification area is to really go out there and get experience either in the classroom, as an intern, or just any type of experience that you can find working with students. This is important regardless of which path you take to certification, but especially if you're completing an alternative program. So one assumption of my study was that the 15 options I listed as preferences were the best ones to list. I based this list off of my literature study, but once I looked at the answers to the open-ended questions that were part of the survey, I realized that there were many more factors that could have been considered on the list. So just because I found the top 10 out of these 15 doesn't necessarily indicate that I found the top 10 overall. I also failed to find an accurate way to measure the performance outcomes of the alternatively hired teachers to determine why principals may have hiring biases towards traditionally certified teachers over alt-cert teachers. In addition, my study was limited by my inexperience with the research process overall, as well as a lack of relevant coursework in research methods and statistics. Given these assumptions and limitations, I recommend that future research examine actual on-the-job performance and experience of alternatively certified teachers. I would recommend interviewing first-year alternatively certified teachers who had been hired to see how well they feel they were prepared for the rigors of the classroom and if they were in fact successful. This might help shed some light on whether or not principals' biases were accurate. Success could be measured in a variety of ways, such as test scores, T-test evaluations, and even simply looking at the number of those first-year teachers who were offered renewal contracts. I can tell you from my own experience as a first-year alternatively certified teacher that the theme for me seemed to be you don't know what you don't know. And until you have gone through that first year, it's very, very hard to understand why a principal may or may not have a bias towards a particular method of certification or why they might have a preference for a certain personality trait or teaching characteristics. This research study took 3 semesters out of my graduate program, and I'm very proud of the work I did. So I have prepared a manuscript of the study for possible peer review in the Journal of Teacher Education, which is a leading journal in the field. And I'm also sharing it with you here at the Graduate Research Forum. I would appreciate your feedback on my presentation. So on the YouTube video page below, please indicate your anonymous preference for the study by clicking on one of these 2 icons, like or dislike. In addition, please post your comments or questions or suggestions in the YouTube comment section below. I'll respond to inquiries posted in 2017 from April 14th through April 28th on this webpage. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation.